My first real experience with this project was a messy glob of plastic and me realizing that this wasn't going to be as easy as I thought it would be. This whole thing started the moment I plugged in my new 3D printer, which I just assembled. Since learning about this unique technology, I've been totally fascinated with it and wanted to learn how to use it for a long time. So being as enthusiastic as I was, I bought a 3D printer, and once it got to my house, I immediately sat down and assembled it. And it only got up once it was assembled about 4.5 hours later. I turned it on and saw that there was a print already loaded onto it, so I pressed print and waited a couple hours until it was done. When I went downstairs to check on it, I found a complete mess on the printing surface. At that moment, I realized that it was going to take a lot more work to figure out how to operate this technology. Before I started working on this project, my original goal was to learn how to make a complicated 3D design and print it. To me, this was a straight-on idea, and I was very excited to get started. As shown from my first experience with my new 3D printer, my expectation for what I would be able to do immediately dropped. I realized that it wasn't as simple as the YouTubers or bloggers made it to be. The first whole week of the project was honestly just devoted to making the printer function correctly. There were many things that required tinkering, such as a printing surface level, what you print on, and tuning the X and Y axis of the arm, which moves the extruder, which spits out the plastic. This is due to me not buying the best 3D printer. Although my printer was in the range of $200 to $300, it is considered a cheap 3D printer, with quality ones going in the thousands. Because of this, I had to do a lot of troubleshooting, which someone who bought a better 3D printer would not need to do. The second week of the project was fully devoted to learning how to design prints. The design I set out to create was to be able to print a functional glider. I had many design iterations, and at the end was able to get a glider which worked straight off of the printing bed. I learned a ton about how to design things, but was overall unsatisfied. Because I set my goal as designing a complicated object, it meant that I could always make something more complicated than what I built, meaning that there was no set expectation for what to create. On the other hand, I can say that I learned a lot. Some of the many things I learned about the subject was how to turn 2D drawings into 3D ones, and many other things such as being able to better refine the object I design into more finalized designs. To summarize what I have just said, I will never achieve what I set out to do. I'm not saying that in a cynical way, but rather the opposite. Because I'll never achieve my goal, I will always push myself further in terms of this project. My goal was to learn a skill, more specifically designing and printing a complicated 3D design. A skill can never be achieved, only understood better, as there is always space to learn and improve. Although I learned a lot about the skill I was attempting to learn, I learned some things about myself as well. Stubbornly sitting there, trying to make my 3D printer work, I realized that when motivated, I was able to focus for incredible amounts of time. Focusing has always been an issue for me, but I learned that when I want to do something, I will sit there and do it until it's done. When working with my hands, I was able to focus well, but when I needed to sit on the computer to actively learn how to design, it was quite the opposite. I was much more easily distracted when using my computer, many times being trapped by the evil AI of YouTube and other applications I used to learn. In conclusion, I learned a ton about the project and much about myself as well. If I could take something for next cycle, it would be to create a goal that doesn't seem to have an ending. This might seem contradictory, but because my goal is to learn a skill, it pushed me to learn as much as I could, and even when this cycle ends, I will still continue to learn more about my project.